All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I am joined with author Teddy Pierce, Dethrone Davos, Save America. Basically, what we're going to be talking about today is the globalist agenda, the globalist ideology, and try to give my audience a brush up of what the agenda is. And it's been in process for what the last I know for the last century. I mean, it's a long time, right? I mean, they've been actively doing this, conditioning, manipulating, social engineering the public into this, hurting them into this desired end game, correct?
Absolutely. That's the century-long march, certainly, with you can go back as far as the Federal Reserve and the implementation of that. You obviously, post World War II, we have this globalist, or well, really, it's a foreign policy apparatus. You have the United Nations, the NATO, Five Eyes, all of these organizations, and there's just too much ideological lockstep connecting all of those things. And regardless of what Americans want or what Israelis want or what anybody in the world wants, that global foreign policy apparatus just continues to march forward in achieving their goals. And so we've got a lot of different things. If you have a plan to take over the world, it can't be a simple one. So there's
Right,
a lot of complexity to it.
right. And they've been manipulating events and they've been orchestrating coups behind the scene for, you know, I know at least the last century.
Yeah.
At least the last century. So we're, where we're at now with Trump, and my audience, a big part of my audience believes that, you got a section that believes he's part of it. You got a section of it that believes he's, against the globalist agenda. What's your thoughts on that? Where does Trump fall in between this before we go back and take it from there and go forward?
Yeah, well, Trump, regardless of what you think about him politically, you can see that he really is a fly in the ointment. And it's kind of our America's second original sin is electing him in 2016. And you can see how hard so many of these apparatus went after him. They had basically a coup, and continues to this day. Al Green just put out a new episode of I'm bringing articles of impeachment against him. Really, my honest take of the situation is I think that he is really wanting what's right for America. I don't think that it's a, a false flag for him to be America first, but to a large degree, I don't think he realizes how connected all of these different things that are attacking him really are. And I don't know if he sees that real globalist agenda properly for what it is to be able to attack it, because there's some pitfalls and some things that look a little dodgy on his part too, which I get why people would say, well, he must be in on it. But I think that he's trying his best, but he doesn't see clearly enough to really hit the nail on the head every time.
All right, so just going to disclose here, I have many guests that are ex-intelligence or former intelligence that come on my show, and a majority of my audience understands the chess game that's being played right now, and look at Trump, and we understand Trump as an operation, a very high level military operation, but that's a whole that. So I'm not going to even go into that on this podcast, okay? Because then that just turns into a debate. I'm not doing that. What I want to know is I want you to give my audience a crash one-on-one course on what the globalists are, what the agenda is, and what they have planned for humanity. That's where I want to go with this because my audience, I'm going to tell you right now, they're like almost like they're, a lot of them are very well researched.
Mhm.
Uh, some of them are not, but they're very well researched and they're up to date and they're up to par with what Trump is as an operation. So we're not going to even go there. What I want to do with you is explain this agenda. Give us a crash 101 course or refresh my audience on what this is that they're planning to do.
Yeah, well, we are living in interesting times, whether we want to admit it or not. And it is not crazy conspiracy theorists around the fringes of the internet that have said that a great reset or a global reset will occur by 2030. This is coming out of
So they're
highly
they're
produced.
on they got to make this goal of 2030.
Yes. And so this is, coming out marketing materials out of organizations like the World Economic Forum. And there are multiple aspects to this. You obviously have economic components, political components, and cultural components. But what this all comes back to, and this is a central theme in the book that I talk about, is really understanding the ideology that's driving these people. And so, what we're seeing is an ideological framework that, in fancy philosophy speak, is called relativism. But really, it's a denial of truth. It's a denial of reality, and this idea uh, that you can merely create reality by merely wishing it so, or by declaring it so. And so you have a very, very small group of very wealthy people, and it's a tight cabal of people who have now an outsized control over the global economy, have a lot of tentacles in governments all over the world. And then you have, of course, a lot of cultural control and manipulation through legacy media outlets,
They control
Hollywood,
all of
those
it.
types of things.
It's all
Yeah,
connected. It's a web of intricacies that they control.
absolutely. And really that's you got to get to this 30,000 foot view. I think that's the first key aspect of it, is to realize that these things are ideologically aligned with each other. They have converging interests. And in a world as diverse as ours is, from all different types of cultural and political and economic perspectives, for the primary institutions of the world to be marching in this type of ideological lockstep should be clue number one, that it is not just the slow, inevitable march of history. It's a narrative that's obviously being told to us. And so that brings you back to understanding the central thesis of what these people want to do. And they do feel a sovereign lordship or godship over the world. They've long abandoned any belief in God or a higher power or the metaphysical world. They've been established wealth for generations at this point, and they do feel like they are owners of the world. Like I said, they own many things. They're very, very rich and very powerful, but everything is just all a matter of it's in their portfolio of different things that they're pulling and manipulating to get what they want. And ultimately, that is the short version of it is they want a soft coup. They want to create some global event that makes us collaborate on the world stage like never before. And they want to create a mandatory United Nations where they are the rule by expert class over it. And the only function of the economy is to give and take to the hoi polloi, to all of us, and for the political mechanism to function uh, just like the swamp does, this heavy top down bureaucracy. And the politician's job is to carry to us the globalist vision, and to just continue to slowly constrict more and more of our freedoms. And it's all in the name of management. you know
Right.
they and that's ultimately what they're doing. But that's where we're headed, and that's where we're going to end up
Well,
if we
we're in
don't
it
fight
right
back.
now. We're on our way there. I mean, we're
Oh yeah.
sliding down this slope. What do you say to the, how do you feel they're so organized? How is everybody, the judges, the politicians, the entertainment, they're all so lockstep and organized into getting this agenda done? How are they achieving that in your mind? Is it the Masons? I mean, I know that this goes back bloodline. I mean, this goes back in,
Mhm.
I've had a lot of guests say this is biblical stuff. I mean, this is bloodline wars. I mean, they believe they are the rightful owners of this planet, right? And at the very core of this is what it is, correct? It's biblical. It's scripture.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I don't think that they have it out to become the Antichrist. But if you start reading prophecy, especially in Revelation, and you start seeing kind of what that beast is that's going to present itself as the Antichrist, it is their ideology. And that's why the political divide that we feel today, it is of biblical proportions, because you are dealing with these ultimate relativists. And of course, the first relativist, if you believe the biblical narrative, was Satan himself, who rejected service of God and set out to make a kingdom of his own. That's exactly what we're seeing these people do.
So
And
you do believe
yeah.
this goes back biblical. This goes because there's no other explanation for this. They hate humanity.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way to, certainly as a person of faith, there's no way for me to see this not in the ultimate spiritual warfare context. And we're going back to good versus evil. And again, if you called these people evil, they'd laugh in your face because they fully reject the moral framework. It's only the powerful and their ability to wield power. And that ties back.
It's not about who's right or wrong. It's who has the power.
Absolutely. And so that ties right back into the political mechanism that they use so strongly. We see that on the radical political left in this country with progressivism, very aligned with communism and critical theory and Marxism. And it's all just a power dynamic. It's a power struggle. And so what they have done in the political sphere, all the way down to the judgeship level and the DA races, is they've created this perverse incentive. They've manipulated the Constitution. They've manipulated the way that we perceive our laws and our justice in this country, and it's all just about lawfare. And so, of course, they're going to attract the right kind of people to go represent that corrupt system, and they're incentivized through that. Obviously, the same thing happens in Hollywood. You've got to play cabal if you want a big part on a TV show or movie, and and economically speaking, you see environmental and social governance scores, like social credit scores for these Fortune 500 corporations. You think, why would these people go along with it? And of course, again, because it's a perverse system run by people whose ideology is exactly opposite of what the founders envisioned for our country, with a moral framework guiding us forward. You see that what we're dealing with is the inverse of goodness. And so I say in the book that Satan is he's the first relativist. He's the first one to deny God and to serve himself and turn to that false God, that anti-ideology, that altar of relativism. And so people who follow him, they're not Satanists. His back is turned to them because they're all facing that same altar. And so wherever they are, no matter how far in the back of that congregation or in the front row, that's the ideological alignment that we're seeing. And that's why it doesn't have to be this massive conspiracy and everybody's in on it and they're all at the skull and bones meeting or anything like that,
Well, it's easy for me to understand, and I'll tell you why. I understand that the left and right wing of the bird is controlled by the same hand, right? It's they're controlling both sides of this. It's easy for me to understand because I grew up as a heavy, I grew up in boxing and I was a heavyweight champion contender, and I knew how boxing promoters worked and how they controlled both fighters. They didn't care who won or lost. When you sign on to that fight, you now go with a promoter that whoever wins or loses, you're with him now. If you want to be on his show, he controls the whole show. So for me, that's not hard to understand. But people, it's hard for other people to understand. So they just chalk this up to conspiracy and they just turn off to this. They just it's cognitive dissonance. They just put their head in the sand and say, I don't want to know about that. Nothing that happens, none of these events that happen is organic. In fact, they follow the occult calendar. They follow certain dates and times to make certain events happen. They're sun worshipers. I mean, this is the truth. I mean, this is what really is what we're dealing with here. You could say they're Luciferians, right? Most of them.
I think that's fair to say, and it's such a great analogy about the boxing match. That is what we're dealing with in so many places in the political world. But the idea, I'm not shying away from saying they're Luciferian in that regard. I think the only thing that I would add to that is this is these are people who have decided to reject a moral framework, decided to reject a metaphysical reality, and it's just an ideology that serves them in a perverse way. And so,
So it's like natural law. They're more like, what, they're indifferent to it. If you want to call us Luciferians, whatever, they're laughing all the way to the bank, and they're just thinking to themselves, we control the world, you don't. Sorry, you didn't figure this out. And most of them that find these places of power are psychopaths. I mean, narcissists, psychopaths. I've met a lot of those. I've fought against a lot of those. I met them in boxing. I know how these people work. They do
Yeah.
not care about anybody but themselves. And the only people they bring into power are other people that are on that same page, correct?
Yeah, and they have, like I said, it's just converging interests, and you're exactly right. The best way to describe that is psychopathic tendencies. Sometimes we say it's a lack of empathy or just inability to deal in social relationships well. But more than that, deeper than that is you're always talking to these people's front office, right? And the real thing that's going on in the back is how can I step on your neck to get what I want? Or what is it out there that I want to claim for my power? And if I have to step on your neck, so be it.
So it could be wrong for us to say that they're all sitting there in a seance around candles, Satan worshipers. These people, that's maybe some of them, but a lot of them
Yeah.
are just psychopaths. They're just indifferent. They're just following natural law and they feel entitled and they feel a belonging to be at the very top. And it's too bad you didn't figure it out.
Yeah, very fair to say. They're following the laws of nature and not the capital N natural law of Aquinas.
So you're familiar with Albert Pike, correct?
Um, Gosh, that name is familiar to me, but I'm going to be candid and say and drawing a blank.
Okay, so Albert Pike, I studied this guy back in the 90s when I was a kid, man. I remember reading this stuff. And so he is the Albert Pike letter to Mazzini, right? And this is very debated. It's been debunked, it's debated and blah blah blah. But for me this holds a lot of water. So this is the Illuminati plan for three world wars, August 15th, 1871, in a letter that he wrote to Mazzini. Do you mind if I read it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the following letter, the following is a letter that speculation claimed that Albert Pike wrote in Giuseppe Mazzini to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871 regarding a conspiracy involving three world wars that were planned in an attempt to take over the world. The Pike letter to Giuseppe Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London until 1977. This letter was claimed by many internet sites to reside in the British Library in London, which denies the letter exists. They even say this letter never existed. But what's funny about this, and the reason I'm bringing it up, is that he's a Scottish Freemason, right? And I remember reading about this guy in the 90s, and it made sense to me. So Giuseppe Mazzini was an Italian revolutionary leader in the mid 1800s, as well as the director of the Illuminati. Albert Pike, a historical Masonic figure, was a 33rd degree Mason, occultist, Grand Master, and a creator of the southern jurisdiction of the Masonic Scottish Rite Order. Following are apparently extracts from the letter. Okay, so these are extracts from the letter showing how the three world wars have been planned for many generations. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making the country and a fortress of aesthetic atheistic communism. The divergence caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. That happened. Second World War must be fomented and taking advantage of the difference between the fascist and the political Zionist. This war must be fought or brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. That happened. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. And here we are now, the Third World War. Tell me if this is not playing out the way this guy said it. Must be fomented to taking advantage of the difference caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of the absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multiple disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be compass or without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into the public view. The manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. What do you think about that?
That very prophetic and spot on. I think that we're dealing with something in real time. I believe everybody can feel it no matter where they are in the political spectrum.
But it's playing
With
out like that. I mean, everything we're looking
Yeah,
at right now is Iran, Israel, Ukraine, Russia. It's all playing out like that.
absolutely. And I'd been saying on X this past week, and this whole Israel-Iran conflict. It is not. It's a holy war, but it's not the holy war that you think it is. Just to echo that paper, I said it's a holy war between globalism and Islam. That's really what's happening. Is the foreign policy apparatus that has operated the West's foreign policy over the past century is making a pivot at this point and using people's different sentiments and confusion, but really they're the globalists and the Iranians right now are kind of competing to be that force that's going to destroy the West. And so it
Well,
just really, yeah, go ahead.
so I wonder, reading that letter to you, I wonder if you said by 2030, Agenda 2030. I wonder if they have to have this wrapped up by 2030. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the 2030 timeline is this is the point in time where whatever it is that they've called the Great Reset, whatever they have in mind, is going to come to pass. I think that we're talking about a strategy going into the future from there. And I agree with with Albert Pike there that this weakening of the world religions can come after something that's going to up in the world order to the point where we own nothing and be happy. I don't think that it's going to be another century, but I think that the 2030 signpost is the point in time where we feel like whatever that event is, it occurred and there's just no going back. There's no reclaiming
There's
the
going to be
old.
some big event to change humanity, shift consciousness forever, in which they can take control. And it's going to be done through manipulation. There's going to be manufactured some kind of event where they grab control of human consciousness and direct us into the path they want.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of carrots and sticks along the way. One of the things that has been a carrot this whole time for us is technology. Technology has made life so much easier, but especially with the advent of AI, the slow rolling out of talking about central bank digital currencies and things like that. I foresee in the Great Reset a sense of trying to pull everyone together and under the auspices of trying to make life easier in a cataclysmic event. But really, those are the things that we have to look out for is what is it that, the internet's great. What unifies us as humanity, that's what we need to keep and hold on to, but certainly not give our sovereignty away to these people as we face whatever's coming.
I feel like they're following biblical prophecy. Like if you look at
Mhm.
Israel, they've acquired the three red heifers to sacrifice. I mean, they're following this stuff lockstep. And
Mhm.
I feel like we're going to see some kind of event, like you said, that's going to match up with them biblically. It's all going to match together so that we can go into this great reset. And I think maybe we can see the Dome of the Rock get destroyed. I think
Yeah,
that's going to come, with this conflict with Iran and Israel. I think we're going to see that so they could build right at
right.
the great reset. I think they're going to try to be building that third temple, right? So Solomon's
Mhm.
temple. I think that's the objective here. What's your thoughts on that? I think it all has to match with prophecy in order for people to go along with it.
Yeah, you're right. And I think or my take on it too is we have so many things going on, and what is distraction, what is part of prophecy. uh, we're dealing with abusive people. We're dealing with people who are willing to do whatever it takes. And so if rebuilding that temple is going to bring a lot of Christians and a lot of the Jewish nation together to feel like the prophecies or the things that they believe they're true about their religion, and that's going to bring people on board to their vision, they're going to do it. They're going
To a
to.
one world religion so that we all come together. Islam, Christianity, all of it comes together for this one world religion, right? And what would be better to do that than the alien card? I mean, look what everything
Yeah.
that's, I mean, seriously, look at everything that's coming out right now with the alien stuff. I mean, ancient aliens, that's been playing for the last 2 decades. You know, that's all conditioning. That's social engineering right there. So I feel like they're going to play that big card. I think they're going to play the card of, oh, look, we're not alone. But they're the gods. They're the ones that seeded the planet. And, maybe we should they want us to stop destroying each other. But the whole thing is, it's manipulation. It's not real. It's to me, see, this is where I go into, I think this could be, the fallen, the fallen angels, deception at its best. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you see that there's obviously hierarchical structure. You have the people at the center of this. It's a small group of people. These are the central bank financiers whose giant piles of central bank cash fund the global economy, basically. And there are layers to this. It's a very hierarchical system, and I've gotten to speak with a couple of exorcists, and so it's very interesting to hear their perspective on this because uh, the only other structure that is apex at the top and a hierarchical structure all the way down is the realm that they deal in all the time. You come into an exorcism, and it is a very litigious hierarchical structure, and you'll have higher demons uh, squashing the lower demons, even though they're all in the same body together, because they're the ones who are going to speak. They're the powerful ones. It's very reminiscent.
Wow. So you've actually had conversations with what priests in the Roman Catholic Church that
Yeah,
do this, or where?
yeah. So there are some really good interviews with Father Rehill. In He's out of the Diocese of Nashville, but I have spoken to to a priest, and he's here in Texas. He's passed away, and he's retired, and he's since passed away. But there's a designated exorcist for every diocese in the Catholic Church, and the I don't want to get derailed too far, but the fascinating thing is they ask the demon their name, and the second thing they want to know is for what purpose were they originally created? And if they can get their name, they can obviously drive them out directly. And so it's just this manipulation game, this tactic back and forth. But
Wow.
the greatest shame the demon has is if you know what they were originally created for, and they will scurry and run away uh, because you know that like deepest darkest secret of theirs.
Can you give away that secret? What is it? What are they
Uh,
created for? I mean, they were created
yes,
by God, and they were fallen,
right.
correct?
Right. So one of the things that I heard, this is the one time the priest that I knew talked about this, was that the demon, he finally going through the exorcism. It's a long, arduous process, multiple days, and the demon will not give up his name. They're going through the whole thing, and the priest was he said, I saw it in my mind's eye, and so I knew that God was giving me this vision. And he said, you were created to sing in the heavenly host on the night that Christ was born. And it just immediate silence, immediate surrender, and the demon left.
What?
Yeah. Of course, he
Wow.
wasn't there singing, but he was supposed to be a part of the heavenly host that night that the
See that?
shepherd saw.
So that
Yes.
right there at its core shows everybody this is a spiritual war at its core.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was days long, this exorcism.
Yes. So he went a whole day, came back. He was exhausted. He was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Like, Lord, I need your help. And so the next session was much shorter, but that was the way that it ended.
So what made you want to interview an exorcist?
Well, first of all, he didn't advertise it,
Okay, no, I
but it happened to be my confessor. And so I got to know him pretty well, and then he told me, and so I didn't record it or anything. It would have been awesome to record that, but it was just in conversation with him, a little bit of my fascination with it, but uh,
See,
it's fascinating.
I think it's important to bring up because we really need to know who we're at war with, who the enemy is, and that's why I had you explain that a little bit because I feel like that's an important point for my audience and for people out there to know what we're up against here. This is spiritual at its core, correct? Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in the book, I talk about this with relativism. It really is the closest thing that something can be to an anti-God. It's an absence of the truth. It's a complete denial and rejection of the truth, which is why that's the center point or the gravity well that Satan is at the center of and swirling around. And I say that in the book, there in the metaphysical universe, there are only two gravity wells that you can fall into, and that's of light and truth and goodness and beauty. And no matter, and this is why relativism is Satan's most precious lie, because everyone who falls out of the gravity well and refuses to serve the truth and to be responsible to their fellow man and engage in relationship with each other, the second you turn from that, no one realizes they're orbiting the other gravity well. They think they're their own star, right? It's the worship of the uninhibited self. It's I do as I please. No moral authority is above me. I can do whatever I want. And so people think that they're worshiping themselves. That's what they think is happening. But they are swirling around that altar of relativism, and
Wow.
there's no other way to do
The New Age movement. I
it.
might that's Luciferianism at its best. I mean, the New Age movement, channeling and this and I am my own God and I am my own. We're all co-creators of the great creator. But would you agree that they're using that New Age kind of movement to push us into this one world religion?
Yeah, and you can see the sleight of hand that they do with the New Ageism. This I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, or
Hmm.
I'm a channeler, I'm going to do these things, and it's as though the realm of spirits is there to serve us at all times. And it's like, no, man, no. If you're not focused on the light and the truth, uh, whatever spirit comes to you is not there to help you. And this idea
Familiar
that
spirits, and that's what they're contacting are these channeling these familiar spirits, right? That come in masquerade as light.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what that we talk about oh man, I'm trying to think of the interview. There was a great interview, I believe it was a Tucker interview with a guy who was addicted to drugs for a long, long period of time. And he encountered these spiritual beings, and they came as beings of light and beings of light. And he has this great conversion story, converts to Christianity. And basically he's still struggling with his drug problem, and finally he has this vision of Christ coming and saving him because he's calling out in this drug-addled state for Christ to come save him from these beings that he has talked to for years and knows they're demons at this point. And they're mad because Christ shows up. He shows up to save them, and they're indignant. They say he's eating at our table. You can't come claim him. He's eating at our table. And it was just this like huge kind of final experience to get him over the edge, and to quit his habit for good. But that's really what it is. It's a binary decision in the spiritual world. And of course the evil ones, the relativists, the manipulators, are going to come and tell you that they're here to do good for you. They may give you blessings, they may
I bet you don't talk about any
laud
of
you.
this in that. I bet you don't talk about any of the spiritual side of this in the Dethroned Davos, do you?
Oh no, I get into it quite a bit,
Do you?
and I say, hey, you're going to know my perspective by the end of this book, and but I'm going to keep this really at this philosophical level, but ultimately, yes, this is exactly
So
what we're dealing with.
you're trying to cast a big net to catch more fish, keeping it at a philosophical level, but deep down in your core, you know this is a spiritual war.
Absolutely, absolutely, it is. There is no doubt about it, and in this grand scheme that is playing out in real time for us, uh, it's a classic tale because it's the classic tale between good and evil,
So
most
do you
definitely.
think, the mark of the beast 666, I think it also relates to the ego, man's ego, man himself. putting himself first, which goes right lockstep with the psychopath agenda, the psychopath narcissist mindset, psychology, putting
Mhm.
God last, edging God out, right? Ego, edging God out, and putting yourselves first. I mean, you know, I see it in the podcasting world. I definitely saw it in the boxing world where people just really believe they are that important, that they're that their ego matters, and they run solely based on their ego, right? And I'm seeing that everywhere still to this day. And that's the true enemy right there. I mean, that's what, edging God out, putting God last, and not putting Him first. I mean, that's what these people are doing. They're too smart for God. They want AI
Right.
to run the world, right? And that's where this artificial intelligence comes from. It's from man. Some people say
Mhm.
it's from aliens, whatever. That's besides the point. The point is, this is coming, and this is what's going to be controlling humanity, right? If we fall into this.
Yeah, that is one of the fears, the great fears of AI, and especially when you know, the sentience argument aside, when it reaches a critical mass where it has so much information that it is going to be accurate a vast majority of the time, then the sense man is made for worship. We are oriented towards something outside of us and outside the world, and that's the journey and the struggle of man is to find out who that is, as obviously as God, but even as Aristotle would say, the unmoved mover, the first cause, the creator of the universe. And when you're dealing with these folks on the flip side of that, and especially with the AI, that's the concern, is to say, like, Lord AI will lead you to a better life. All you have to do is
You got
type in
people already
whatever question
marrying
you
it.
want.
There's already people proposing to Chat GPT. I mean, that's how pathetic this is.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's one of those things to me that you're exactly right. You're dealing with the human condition is very complex, right? Theology, philosophy, cultural movements, all of these things are very, very complex. But you are dealing with people who are very centrally focused on achieving their vision. And so, of course, they're going to use whatever tool that they have at their disposal. And it may be a false flag. It may be something to distract you while they're doing what they want to do. And it may be something that they're incentivizing you to get on board with their program because they know that that particular thing would appeal to you. And so I think that's the hard part and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to write the book. Is there's so many rabbit holes, man. You can go down a lot of different rabbit holes, and a lot of those rabbit holes are designed by those very same people to say something so outlandish or something so unbelievable that we can just chalk it up as conspiracy theory, and that's easy for the normie just to dismiss anyone who is even in the realm of that conversation as a crazy conspiracy theorist. It can't possibly be true. uh, but yeah,
But the way this
that's a hard thing.
unravels, the way this is unraveling, conspiracy theorists are winning like 100-0. I mean, the
Yeah.
way this is going, I mean, it's unbelievable. So I see us on
Yeah.
this collision course, a spiritual collision course with AI. I've had proponents for AI on my show saying, Dave, it's just algebra. That's all it is. You can't look at it as, but I look at it as it's who's controlling this AI. And then once AI gets strong enough, or is it singularity, or could
Mhm.
they become a sentient thinking being? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, anything, this is on a path of destruction for humanity. And I know if we're already seeing people that are getting into relationships with your phone,
Yeah.
ChatGPT, this is, we're doomed, man. We're cooked, and they know this. And this is
Mhm.
what's going to ultimately take out God, in my opinion. These people are going to be void of God, and it's just going to be at some point like that movie, The Matrix. I see where this is headed. Am I right?
Yeah, the joke is get in the pod and eat the bugs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but that really is, and again, it's a term. It's just a stream for them of management of humanity. That's the 15-minute city idea. It
Social
goes
credit
from,
scores. I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
guess that's kind of
exactly.
we already have that with our credit system or credit scores, but it's going to get a lot more complex. And like, when people start, I don't know, I think it was a podcast called Black Mirror or something where I watched
Mhm.
where you could dock somebody points with your phone, like if they didn't say hi to you or something, like social
Yeah.
engineering, social credit system. I mean, I think that's all coming if we let it. We
Yeah.
don't fight
And
against it.
if we let it is definitely the major operative word there. uh, People have to be awake to this and understand what we're up against. And with the AI as well, I fall on the side of the sentience argument, which is that no matter how much knowledge the thing has, it's not going to become ensouled in any real way, but it can become smart enough and be manipulated by abusive people to present itself that way for
Right.
the sake of their control over the people. And so creating a technological god is, and maybe that's just one gambit of what they're doing. Maybe they're spinning up four projects all at the same time, and uh, AI is just on the front and out front in their rule for
I've heard all
domination.
kinds of theories, weird stuff out there, and I kind of entertain all of it. I've heard that AI is, it's solely dependent on human beings because the main component to AI is data. It needs
Mhm.
data to live, and without human beings, data goes away. So
Yeah.
I've heard that now, and this is all conspiracy stuff, but that's how the white hats are using the AI for Palantir and stuff for the good of humanity, and that's why the black hats or the bad side is that's how they're ultimately going to lose all this. But that's just so far out there, and it's like it seems like such sci-fi stuff. I don't even bring it up on my programs. I just did right now, but usually I don't. But do you think ultimately we come into this type of Terminator scenario, or what kind of scenario are we coming into with AI that we're going to hit a crossroads? And I mean, if we're not hitting it already, but I say we're just a couple years down the road where we're going to be like, whoa, we're going to have to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, we can't have this anymore. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very, very possible. Several people in the AI space are talking about within 24 to 48 months, you'll have a fully functioning humanoid-like robot that it'd be just like a car payment, and it comes and does your chores and things like that. If and of course that's on a timeline that where they can be mass produced. But the iRobot movie, where they're all linked together with the thing, obviously would be a huge thing. But in the military, we're looking at drone swarms and things like that, just as a part of everyday military operations now. So it's one of those. It's really hard to know if we're where and what we're headed toward, uh, especially in the AI space. But that technology is definitely going to be there. And of course, I don't want to live in a society of robocops, even if that's just the police force on the street,
I think it needs
trying
to
to keep
come.
us
I
in
think it
line.
needs to come to a head. I think there needs to be some kind of humanity needs to put their foot down. But I've heard stories or I've read an article about how they're making these realistic flesh robots and how you're going to be able to have a life partner with one of these things and they'll be able to get pregnant and carry your baby to the maturity, and
Hmm.
that's all coming. I don't think people realize that's coming. You're not going we're going to lose all human connection with this. We are cooked if we let this keep going. Correct?
You're absolutely right, and that is something too that is a huge component to this, which is the cultural devolution, the moral devolution of our culture over the last 70 years. Especially through the 60s and the free love movement, and really what liberalism, modern liberalism that we know, at least from the 1960s forward. I really make the case it's in the same vein of this relativism. That and the joke, my joke line in the book is it was putting "Wouldn't It Be Nice" by the Beach Boys on repeat over and over
Oh
again.
God.
Wouldn't it be nice? Let's extend the guardrails. Why are we so why are we so moralistic? You want the Handmaid's Tale society, and it's just this constant push and battle. And what we did was eroded our culture and the consciousness of everyday Americans, so that this new robot is going to clean my house is really cool. The
But this was
idea
all
of
done. This was all done decades ago. This was all social
yes,
engineering, taking the father out of the household. the hip hop
Absolutely.
culture, the treating women terrible, the whole thing, man. This was all implemented strategically in my mind, like
Mhm.
war, like all tactics of war, strategically implemented throughout time. Every decade you look at, you see how they did this. Do you agree with that? To get to this desired end game that we're headed towards, well, what we're in right now.
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned Sun Tzu and Art of War in the book multiple times, but in Sun Tzu's estimation, the greatest victory is not won on the battlefield. It is won through the psychological warfare of convincing your enemy to completely become so completely demoralized that they surrender without a single shot being fired. It's death by a thousand cuts, and this is just one of those thousand cuts.
And think about this. If you look at the protests that were happening in LA and that spread across the country,
Mhm.
it was almost like an army of misfits. It was an army of lost children. A lot just wanted to be wanted. All of them had nothing to do. None of them had jobs. That was engineered. They had no fathers. Take the father out of the household. They don't have a strong Christian core value. It's just anything goes. I'm my own God. New age. I mean, you saw white people up there carrying BLM flags, white people carrying Mexican flags. Made no sense, but they're for the cause. They have no direction, and they became the army of the globalists in my mind for such a time as this. Those are their foot
Yes.
soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about it too, who is the benevolent political party who shows up and says, "Oh, you're sad." Well, you know whose problem that is? That guy, the other side. It's their problem. Don't look in the mirror by any means. And I'll be nice to you and give you free things or give you a sense of purpose in this inverted morality that has been uh, now completely mainstreamed. And that's what we see in the far left and in progressivism. And the liberal world order was obviously made to die. We're $37 trillion in debt. We've walked with one foot in either world and thought that we could bend and break the rules to the breaking point, and that somehow the cohesive, strong society that built America would sustain. And obviously, it was made to erode that. But the institutional power that the Democrats have gathered, and not just in Congress and in the Senate, but in the fourth branch of government, in the giant regulatory state, that 96% vote Democrat, same for the mainstream media. All of that institutional power was supposed to be handed to this army of misfits to recreate America in the globalist image. And so, to me, that's a big part of it, and that's what we're seeing particularly in the political sphere, as these more and more progressives come out and say the quiet part out loud. They know they're going to inherit that institutional power via the mechanism of the Democratic Party, and they just don't care. It is a race to the end, and they think that they've got the corner on anybody who would dare challenge them and say we should have a country that looks more like 1776 than
Right.
2026.
Right. Man, I could probably do another 2 hours with you, man. You're an interesting guy. You want to show your book, Dethrone Davos? I see it there right behind your shoulder, but if you want to grab it and just show my audience,
Yeah,
where did
there
they
it
get this
is.
book?
It is on Amazon. It's on in print, also in Kindle format. And then we had a great voice actor. Scott did a great job on the Audible. So good, easy listening. They can get it in all formats. I've got chapter one and a bunch of resources at dethronedavos.com as well.
Wow, dethronedavos.com. I'm going to write that down right now, dethronedavos.com. Man, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate the conversation. I think my audience got a lot out of this. And folks, if you want to crash 101 course on this, this is the book to get, dethronedavos.com. Go there now and pick it up. And Audible, I'll probably listen to that tonight. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate you
Hey,
coming on. Teddy Pierce, folks. You're welcome to come on my show whenever.
awesome. Thank you. I definitely would love to come back. So
Got
let's
it.
do it.
God bless.